Everything starts somewhere, although many physicists disagree. But people have always been dimly aware of the problem with the start of things. They wonder aloud how the snowplow driver gets to work, or how the makers of dictionaries look up the spelling of the words. Yet there is a constant desire to find some point in the twisting, knotting, ravelling nets of space-time on which a metaphorical finger can be put to indicate that here is the point where it all began. Something began when the Guild of Assassins enrolled Mr. Teatime, who saw things differently from other people, and one of the ways that he saw things differently from other people was in seeing other people as things. Later, Lord Downey of the Guild said, "We took pity on him because he'd lost both his parents at an early age. I think that, on reflection, we should have wondered a bit more." Senior wizards of Unseen University stood and looked at the door. There was no doubt that whoever had shut it wanted it to stay shut. Dozens of nails secured it to the door frame. Planks had been nailed right across. And finally it had, up until this morning, been hidden by a bookcase that had been put in front of it.
"And there's a sign, Redcliffe,"
said the Dean.
"You have read it, I assume. You know, the sign which says, 'Do not under any circumstances open this door.'"
Of course I read it,
said Redcliffe.
"Why do you think I want it opened?" Why?
said the lecturer in recent runes. He gestured to Modo, the university's gardener and odd-job dwarf, who was standing by with a crowbar.
"Go to it, lad."
The gardener saluted.
"Right, yes, sir."
Against the background of splintering timber, Redcliffe went on.
"Oh, it says in the plans that this was the bathroom. There's nothing frightening about a bathroom, for God's sake. I want a bathroom. I'm fed up with sluicing down with you fellows. It's unhygienic. You can catch stuff. My father told me that. Where you get lots of people bathing together, like the Veruca gnome is running around with his little sack."
"Is that like the toothpaste?"
said the Dean sarcastically.
"I'm in charge here, and I want a bathroom of my own."
said Redcliffe firmly.
And that's all there is to it, all right? I want a bathroom in time for Hogfather night.
The
Understand?
candle flame was streaming out horizontally as though in a howling wind. She looked up. The curtains billowed away from the window, which flung itself open with a clatter. But there was no wind. At least, no wind in this world. Images formed in her mind. A red ball, the sharp smell of snow, and then they were gone, and instead there were...
"Teeth?"
said Susan aloud.
"Teeth again?"
She blinked. When she opened her eyes, the window was, as she knew it would be, firmly shut. The curtain hung demurely. The candle flame was innocently upright. Oh no, not again. Not after all this time. Everything had been going so well.
Is that me? Susan?
She looked around. Her door had been pushed open and a small figure stood there, barefoot in a nightdress. She sighed.
"I'm afraid of the monster in the cellar, Susan. It's going to eat me up."
Susan shut her book firmly and raised a warning finger.
"What have I told you about dancing ingratiatingly cute, Twilight?"
she said. The little girl said,
"You said I mustn't. You said that exaggerated lisping is a hanging offence, and I only do it to get attention."
"Good. Do you know what monster it is this time?"
I'm going to move this actually because it's in the
"It's the big hairy one with..."
Susan raised the finger.
"Huh?"
She warned.
"With its arms."
Twila corrected herself.
"What? Again? All right."
She got out of bed and put on her dressing gown, trying to stay quite calm while the child watched her. So they were coming back. Oh, not the monster in the cellar. That was all in a day's work. But it looked as if she was going to start remembering the future again. She shook her head. However far you ran away, you always caught yourself up. But monsters were easy, at least. She'd learned how to deal with monsters. She picked up the poker from the nursery fender and went down the back stairs with Twila following her. The Gators were having a dinner party. Muffled voices came from the direction of the dining room. Then, as she crept past, a door opened and a yellow light spilled out and a voice said,
"Ye Gad, there's a
Gale.
There's a girl in the night shot out here with a poker."
She saw figures silhouetted in the light and made out the worried face of Mrs. Gator.
"Susan, what are you doing?"
Susan looked at the poker and then back at the woman.
Twilight said she's afraid of a monster in the cellar, Mrs. Gator.
"And you're going to..."
Glasgow. And you're going.
It's 'cause
That's American.
And you're American.
Just go.
Right. And you're going to attack it with a poker, eh?
said one of the guests. There was a strong atmosphere of brandy and cigars.
"Yes."
said Susan simply.
"Susan's our governess."
said Mrs. Gator.
I told you about her.
There was a change in the expression on the faces peering out from the dining room. It became a sort of amused respect.
She beats up monsters with a poker?
Said someone.
Actually, that's a very clever idea.
Said someone else.
Little girl gets it into her head there's a monster in the cellar. You go in with the poker and make a few bashing noises while the child listens, and then everything's alright. Good thinking, that girl. Very sensible, very modern.
Is that what you're doing, Susan?
Said Mrs. Gator anxiously.
Yes, Mrs. Gator.
Said Susan obediently.
This I've got to watch by Io. It's not every day you see monsters being beaten up by a girl.
Said the man behind her. There was a swish of silk and a cloud of cigar smoke as the diners poured out into the hall. Susan sighed again and went down into the cellar stairs, while Twila sat demurely at the top, hugging her knees. A door opened and shut. There was a short period of silence, and then a terrifying scream. One woman fainted, and a man dropped his cigar.
Tom.
You don't have to worry. Everything will be alright.
Said Twila calmly.
She always wins. Everything will be alright.
There were thuds and clangs, and then a pudding noise, and finally a sort of bubbling. Susan pushed open the door. The poker was bent at right angles. There was a nervous applause.
Very well done.
Said a guest.
Very...
Psychological.
No, he's saying it wrong. He's drunk.
Very psychological. Clever idea that, bending the poker. I'm especially not afraid of that anymore, eh, little girl?
No.
Said Twila.
Very psychological.
Susan says don't get afraid. Get angry.
Said Twila.
Thank you, Susan.
Said Mrs. Gator, now a trembling bouquet of nerves.
And, now, Sir Geoffrey, if you'd all like to come back into the parlour, the drawing room.
The party went back up the hall. The last thing Susan heard before the door shut was...
Me?
Yep.
That's convincing, the way she bent the poker like that.
She waited.
Have they all gone, Twyla?
Yes, Susan.
Good.
Susan went back into the cellar and emerged towing something large and hairy with its left. She managed to haul it up the steps and down the other passage to the backyard, where she kicked it out. It would evaporate before dawn.
That's what we do to monsters.
She said. Twila watched carefully.
A nice bed for you, my girl.
Said Susan, picking her up.
Can I have poker in my room for the night?
All right.
It only kills monsters, doesn't it?
The child said sleepily as Susan carried her upstairs.
That's right.
Susan said.
Okay.
She put the girl to bed next to her brother and leaned the poker against the toy cupboard. The poker was made of some cheap material with a brass knob on the end. She would, Susan reflected, give quite a lot to be able to use it on the children's previous governesses.
Which one's which?
You first.
Good night.
Good night.
She went back to her own small bedroom and got back into bed watching the curtains suspiciously. It would be nice to think she'd imagined it. It would also be stupid to think that too. But she'd been nearly normal for 2 years now, making her own way in the real world, never remembering the future at all. Perhaps she had just dreamed things, but even dreams could be real. She tried to ignore the long thread of wax that suggested the candle had, just for a few seconds, streamed in the wind.